So if you're anything like me, you probably feel like a regular person, right? Maybe you feel really, really substantial, but I feel like a pretty regular person, okay? And sometimes it's hard to understand, when I think about what I have to offer, it's hard to understand how I can really matter to the people around me. And the crux for me is that I feel like a regular person, but I feel compelled to live some sort of meaningful life, some sort of life that is going to matter after I'm gone, where there will be an impact on the people that I was in community with that outlives me. And that's really important to me, but it's hard when you feel regular, right? Like, so what can I do that's going to be substantial, you know? Well, I think that there are a few things that we can all do. My view on the world is that we're all trying to trade acceptance for vulnerability. Okay, we're all dying to be accepted by the people around us for who we are. But the trade there is that we've got to be vulnerable in order to do that. Because most of us spend a pretty good amount of our energy and our time trying to be a version of ourselves that we think other people are going to like. Does that sound in any way, shape, or form accurate? No. You guys are the exception. That's great. If you really, really believe that about yourself, good. I'm glad. I'm happy for you. I don't believe you, but I'm happy for you. Because we live in a world where we are born these perfect, innocent things, and that is drummed out of us as fast as it can be. We are taught to be ashamed. We are taught that we don't measure up. And we are programmed that life is a competition and that you are being measured against everybody else. And while that's great in sports, I love that in sports. There should be no ties. I guess soccer is a weird exception where in hockey, I guess you can tie in hockey. I'm all for winners and losers when it comes to sports. But in terms of your intrinsic value, it's not a metric that I have to measure against you and you have to measure against me. And that if we're not doing the same thing the same way, that one of us is wrong. But being vulnerable and really showing people who we are, first off, we have a pretty jacked up view of what other people actually want from us for the most part. We're playing this role with the assumption that we know what this other party really wants from us and what's going to make them, what's going to endear us to them. And I figured out a little bit how bad I am at that. And I'm trying to use that information to help me not be such a fraud all the time. But it's scary to be vulnerable. It's scary to put yourself out there and say, this is me, here are the busted parts, and please don't hurt me, you know? But isn't that where the magic happens in relationships? Like when you get to that point in a relationship where you're able to say, here, I'll go first. Here's something that you can hurt me with, but here it is. I mean, that's when progress starts to happen and we start to get past this sort of like shiny exterior where we're all just happy-go-lucky and we don't really get too deep and we feel pretty good about this superficial level stuff. And we get to the meat and potatoes where we actually have an opportunity to affect other people's lives. I heard at the TED conference in Anchorage last year that one of the speakers said that generally people fall into two categories of fear. They're afraid of failure or they're afraid of rejection. To which, of course, I immediately thought, I'm afraid that I'm going to be rejected for being a failure. Like, what do you do with that? What do you do with this idea that you have all the fear that exists, that lives inside you? And that's a hard thing when we want to be vulnerable. We want to be accepted by people. This idea that they are going to reject us, that we're going to get to that moment where we expose enough of ourselves, we're finally at that place where they're like, that's too much. Nope, I can't deal with that. And you're not going to be able to have that kind of relationship with everybody in your life. I'm not suggesting that you should go out and try to be vulnerable with the guy at the gas station tomorrow because you just need this deep human contact with every person you meet. It's impossible. You can't do that. But if you won't do that with anybody, what kind of difference are you going to make? How are you going to be able to have an impact on anyone in a way that matters? This week was crazy, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my friend Lauren here. Because Lauren, there's more to this story, that Lauren has messed my life all up. Discombobulated it in a good way. Somehow my friend Lauren got a bunch of people to change their profile pictures on Facebook to "Thanks Geoff Welch" this week. And I didn't know what was going on. It was a surprise to me. And it was really strange. But it felt in that moment, as I looked at the people who had changed their profile pictures, like, maybe I matter to them. Like, maybe I've done something that mattered to them. And that was like this sort of crushing, humbling thing where it's like the idea that you could really have an impact on somebody, that's really a big deal. And there were a lot of people that changed their profile pictures, and it was nuts. But when I think about the idea of even being able to have an impact on one or two people in a really profound way, that seems worth it to me. It seems like there's value in that. And so I go to this Storyline conference, and it was great, and that's all I'm going to tell you about it. Because this is what I'm telling you about it. In that conference, I decided that I don't think I'm afraid anymore. I spent a lot of time being afraid. I'm really good at being afraid. It's like a special skill. But I don't think that I'm afraid anymore. I feel like maybe I have crossed a line somewhere where that isn't the number one thing that drives me anymore. And I am more compelled by this idea of, I guess maybe it's not that I'm not afraid anymore. I'm more afraid of regret than I am of failure now. I'm more afraid that I'm going to get to the end or way down the road and say, why didn't I blank? Than I am about this idea of, well, what if I try this and it doesn't work? I love when Seth Godin says, this might not work. He loves to start projects with the idea of, this might not work. We're going to find out. And so I think that I would rather I would rather be a failure at pursuing greatness than I would rather be a success at being mediocre. Of just living a boring, safe, comfortable life. I decided that I refuse to die with words left in me. I refuse to let somebody I care about not know that before I die. I refuse to not say the things that matter to me, even if people are going to think I'm a kook or that, but man, that Geoff Welch, he's just ready to cry all the time. I don't care. Me and Madeline watched Ramona and Beezus last night, and I was choking back tears the whole time. Maddie's my little Ramona. So, you may feel some of those same kind of things. You may feel like it's hard to matter, or it's scary to matter, or it's going to cost you too much personally to matter. But I want to tell you a story. I want to tell you a little bit of my story, and why I think that you have to, you need to put yourself out there. Because 18 months ago, my life was considerably different than it was right now. I don't have a different job exactly. I haven't made a lot more money. I don't drive a different car, live in a different house. All that stuff is the same. But my life is different than it was a year and a half ago. And it started with a text message that I got on a Saturday morning. And Saturday we're closed, but he's asking for a favor. He's like, can you let me in so I can get this? It's really important. And I say, no problem, I got it. So I meet him down there, and I talk to him for just a few minutes about this website that he's building and they're launching. And I tell him some things that I've been wanting to write about, some things I've been sort of like playing around with. This is 2012, yes. So I've been playing around with this website for a couple years, and I've never really gotten any traction with it, and it's been fits and starts. You know, I've started and I've stopped, and I've had this idea, and then no one has really responded to it, and I've quit. And in this conversation, I feel kind of inspired to crank it back up. I feel inspired to start moving. And so in completely uncharacteristic form, I send this person a bunch of these essays that I've written, and that results in a meeting with them where we talk about some possible collaboration, and that ends up in me meeting Miss Lauren, who some of you know. And from there, Lauren basically just changed my life. So Geoff Welch of 18 months ago did not ask for things that did not seem entirely attainable. If they were not obviously something I could have, I did not ask for them. Geoff Welch of 18 months ago did not meet people he didn't know. If I didn't already know you, I probably wasn't going to seek you out. And there were a number of people that I was very interested in meeting, but again, that goes back to the ask. Like, if I thought that maybe they would be like, no, I have more important friends than you, I really don't need to hang out with you, I wasn't about to ask. And Lauren, I don't even know what it was, Lauren, but Lauren encouraged me. Maybe she saw something in me that I didn't see in me, and that resulted in me doing some crazy things. And so with a lot of fear, though, I was terrified as I'm doing some of these things. So I signed up for a leadership development class through the chamber that I would never, ever have signed up for before. And in fact, we exchanged a few text messages as I was writing the essay to apply to this thing. And I'm like, there's no way. First off, I'm like 36 years old at this point, and this is for like young leaders. I don't feel like I'm actually a young leader anymore. And surely everyone else's essay is going to be better, and they're going to have better stories, and they're going to be more interesting, and like all this stuff. And I'm a spaz, I understand. But I do it. They accept me. They probably accepted my check more than me, but I get in. I meet some people in that group that are wonderful. Lauren introduces me to all these people that, for some reason, she's lived in Fairbanks for like 6 months, a year at that point. I don't know. It's not long. And she knows 4,000 more people than I know. And I guess it's not surprising since I wasn't, that second one. I wasn't meeting people I didn't know. And that relationship, that connection with Lauren, which was not just a business transaction. I mean, Lauren and I became friends very quickly. We became people who trusted one another, and where I could say, this scares me to death to send this in. Do you think that I should be scared about this? And because she apparently, even though she's much younger than me, is much smarter than me, coached me through some of that. So I would expect, I don't know, maybe Lauren thinks she is super, super great, but I would expect Lauren thinks that what she did was no big deal. Lauren's just being a friend. Lauren's just being somebody who was in a friendship with somebody that she wanted to help because that's what friends do. But that's not what Lauren did. Lauren changed my life in a lot of ways. You have the opportunity to do those same things for the people that you are in relationship with. And don't think for a second that is small. You guys, have you ever heard of something called an inflection point? I know Jerry would have heard of it. It's a mathematical term, but we're not going to get into the mathematics of it right now. I Googled it last night so I would have a proper definition, and it's like all the calculus stuff about like curves and when it goes past the negative, and an inflection point in the way that I want to talk about it, in the non-mathematical way, has to do with an event that changes the trajectory of something. Something is going on, it is sort of in a continuum, something happens and it causes it to change. They talk about it in investing as well. Inflection points. And in fact, that's the first time I came sort of adjacent to the word or to the phrase. Lauren was an inflection point for me. And I want to be an inflection point for other people. I want to be somebody who you don't get to cross my path without being a little different because of it. And that's a crazy responsibility because there are lots of skeezy people out there who are inflection points too. There are a lot of people out there who the curve or the line starts to go down after they intersect, That's not the goal. I want people to be somewhat better, but that seems so like, I want to make people better. Like who am I to say that? Like that I can make somebody better, But I care about that. I want people to be better for having known me. And you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, something along those lines. So spend time with people who make you better. And try to be somebody who makes the people around you better. I think of this like a pyramid, okay? So let's say that you have the opportunity to know, hundreds of people in your life? in 80 years, hundreds that you're gonna encounter in some meaningful way? What if you could make a difference for two of them, like a material difference, something where they could look back and say, yeah, no, in that moment, or in this part of my life, this person mattered a lot. Two people, okay? So you're at the top of this pyramid with two people, and those two people have two people, and those two people have... The pyramid starts to get very, very big very, very quickly, and that starts to... A lot of people get affected by that, right? So it's a relatively small percentage of the people you know, but the idea is not that you are at the top of the pyramid and that's so important. But when you think about the difference you make being two people, if you're making the kind of difference that makes them make a difference for two people, all of a sudden the difference you're making is not so small. And if the difference you're making is not so small, you do not get to skip it. You do not have the luxury of being selfish and saying, no, it's just a couple people. It's not going to matter if I don't do it. I always think about this idea of curing cancer. Like, what if in the world right now, there's somebody who has like the key inside them? Like they, for whatever happens in their life, they're the person that can figure it out, right? They've got everything they need. They're going to be they're on this trajectory to go to the school, to meet the people, to do the whatever. That person exists in the world right now to eradicate cancer, right? And what if you're the somebody along the way who encourages them to do the thing that pushes them down that line? That's it's a nonsensical idea. And yet, how many people do you know that you have no idea what a difference you made in their life? But what if in your life you have the opportunity to do something meaningful for someone? It's not about the credit. It's not about them sending you a card, a thank you card, saying, thank you for making my life better. I really appreciate it. You're the best. What if it's just about saying, if I've got something worth sharing, which I believe you do, isn't it my job to do it? Isn't it my responsibility to share that? Your great is going to be different than my great. When you think about this like meaningful thing you can do, at the Storyline Conference, I heard lots of stories of people rescuing small children out of sex trafficking. And it's like when you compare yourself to that, you're like, that's big deal stuff, and my stuff is not that big a deal. Except for whatever reason, I'm not that afraid anymore. And I'm not worried about what my great looks like compared to your great. I'm not really concerned with this idea that I need to match you step for step, or I need to do something that is impressive or grandiose as what you're doing. And you don't have to worry about that either. You just have to make a difference where you're at with what you have. And that's really not that hard. It's just scary. Because what if somebody won't accept it? What if somebody rejects you? What if somebody says, nope, that's too weird for me. I'm out. Well, what if? This last year, I have interviewed a bunch of people via Skype. At least 3 published authors that I would never have guessed would have given me the time of day. And a handful of other people that I've sort of developed this idea that I'm just going to keep asking until people start saying no a lot because they haven't done it. And all these things where I would have expected somebody to say, who are you again? No, I'm not really interested. People keep saying yes. And so that to me says that perhaps I've misjudged other people, and perhaps I have opportunities that I don't realize I have because I'm dismissing them before I ever really give them a chance to blossom. And so I've got this blog called This Tiny Empire that I write. I try to write something every couple days. This last week has been very full. I've written 3 or 4 things this week, or published 3 or 4 things, one of which is a new friend of mine, Rachel Warbelow, who is making a crazy difference in Nevada. She is a 5th grade teacher, and she is teaching the kids to code without the benefit of computers. They are learning to code on paper, with paper and pencil. That doesn't seem the most efficient way to code to me. But she's doing amazing things because she didn't believe that it wasn't possible. She didn't believe that she couldn't do it. What could you do if you didn't believe that you would fail at it, If you really thought you could do it, what could you do? What sort of difference would you make? I've been working on, in conjunction with my blog, I've been working on an idea for like a short ebook that I want to write that I haven't been able to get it captured, but I think I'm getting close. And it's called Please Don't Suck at Being You. Because if we believe that we are like no one else in the world, not that you're more special than anyone else in the world, but that you're the only you that's ever going to show up, you sort of owe it to me to show me what that is, right? The rest of us are not going to get another you ever again. Not with your experiences, not with your background and your makeup, with all the things that make you you. We're not going to get another one of those. Harrison, we're not going to get another one of you, okay? Thankfully. No, not thankfully. So you owe it to us, you owe it to me, to be the best Harrison you can be, okay? To not try to be Harrison filtered through what I think so-and-so wants me to be, or Harrison filtered through, this idea of how I'm going to get this job, Just be you. Let us enjoy that. And guess what? Not everyone is going to like you. But I got a little secret for you. That doesn't change if you pretend to be somebody else. That is a universal truth. You can't be liked by everybody. So why don't you try to be liked for who you are by the people who actually will care about what you bring to the table? That means a lot to me, and I really want to encourage people to get comfortable with that idea. And I talk about it a lot because it's hard for me. I'm always worried that people are gonna hear me talk about this stuff and be like, wow, he's really got it figured out. I have nothing figured out. Not in action and practice. I'm working on it. I believe these things, but I'm trying to figure out how this plays out in my life on a daily basis. How I can matter to the people around me with what I have to offer and not be so afraid that I'm going to be rejected or so afraid that I'm going to, that they're not going to love me the way I want to be loved. Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys, and I'm just glad to be a part of this group.